Robert Daly is director of the Wilson Center's Kissinger Institute on China and the United States. He joins us today to discuss China's reaction to early moves by the Trump administration. Robert, welcome. Thanks for joining us again. You know, last time we spoke, which was a while ago, you had just come back from China and you had been on a speaking tour talking about the U.S. election. And you reported a great amount of interest in the U.S. election. Has that continued now that we have gone through the election?
We're in a very different phase now. I think we spoke then about how so many Chinese, not only leaders and writers, but ordinary people, leaned toward Trump for a number of reasons, based on assumptions, most of which have now been overthrown. So I think that what we have now in Beijing, not only among leaders there, but we see it reflected in the media, we see it on the Twitterverse, is a great deal of concern that the very fundamental terms of U.S. China relations are now changed. It looks like confrontation with high stakes across a series of areas, economic, strategic, soft power, for quite a long time now, and nobody, neither the United States nor the Chinese side, has a script for this.
Is there any hope that this could be sort of an opening gambit by President Trump, the dealer, who is just overplaying a hand, or potentially, and that we might look forward to actually a better level of discourse?
Well, you see a range of views in China as you do in the United States, and there are still the best case scenario people, which will say, yes, this is just bluster in order to try to get a better deal, and where we will eventually end up with Trump is some more bellicose, slightly more militarized version of same old with the United States, which he will then declare as success, but will be able to work within existing structures. I think that almost by the day, the people who hold that view are getting fewer and fewer.
So pessimism is where the momentum is.
Pessimism, trying to figure out what the costs are going to be, what China's red lines are going to be, and they've been quite clear about this. Yesterday, Lu Kang, who until fairly recently had been the number 2, the DCM at China's embassy here in Washington, he's now the foreign ministry spokesman. He gave an English language interview to NBC, which is extremely rare. The thinking is he did this because he knows that Trump watches television. And he made it very clear that both the South China Sea issue and Taiwan are absolutely non-negotiable, are core interests for China. And what that means for China is that these are concerns over which they're willing to go to war.
While it's very early in the Trump administration, his commitment to what he calls America First appears to be more than rhetorical.
Right.
And with the extraordinary appearance by President Xi at Davos, it seems as if we, the United States, may be creating an opening, a leadership void internationally that China is more than ready to step into.
I think it's already happened. With the formal death knells for the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, combined with the trip to Davos, I think that has already happened. And win-win, winning is not generally seen as a major component of leadership. It's somewhat at odds with leadership of the global international order, such as it is, which sometimes involves incurring costs, making sacrifices for the sake of the system, and sometimes for the sake of other players within the system. Again, win-win precludes that. Xi Jinping announced at Davos that China is prepared to move into the breach if it must, although the Chinese have made it very clear this wasn't something that we sought, this was forced upon us. At the same time, it's widely recognized in the United States, in Europe, in all of the responses we've seen to Xi's speech, that China really isn't anywhere near ready to do this. China is not a liberal trading nation. There's nothing liberal about it. In fact, it's getting more illiberal under Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping's speech at Davos was pretty platitudinous. Now, he was there and we weren't. So he was still fairly well received at Davos. His speeches were widely covered in China, and as we've talked about this so many times, they were mainly for people in China to show Xi as a strong leader. So now we have a situation in which China is moving toward expressions of interest in leadership. At least it wants to appear to be a leader, but it's nowhere near ready. It doesn't have the most basic conditions. It's not ready for prime time, and we've pulled back. So where does that leave us?
You mentioned trade, but what about on climate? Is China going to become the world's leader on addressing climate issues?
Well, China is going to move ahead regardless of what we do. Whether we work together with, in accordance with the Paris Treaty and with China or not, China will move ahead to try to clean its own air because of demands from its own people. And China is also a major manufacturer of wind and solar. Now, some of the capabilities they put in place this way. Some of their wind turbines aren't actually hooked up to the grid. So, as is often the case in China, the appearance of leadership on this is quite strong. When you dig beneath the surface, we don't know. But there's no question at this point about China's commitment to reducing emissions for the sake of the Chinese people, because that's what their political legitimacy now, in part, depends on. Whether that translates into real global leadership, we don't know yet.
The U.S. withdrawal from TPP negotiations, is this an immediate advantage China, or is this just an opening that they can now move into?
Well, it's a little bit of both. Of course, it was anticipated. And even before President Trump's action pulling us out of TPP, we had begun to see more Asian countries, for somewhat different reasons in different cases, moving closer to China, maybe bandwagoning with China. Cambodia and Laos, within the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, have already been firmly in China's camp. Thailand, a treaty ally of ours, has been moving very close to China, as is the Philippines now, another treaty ally. We've seen the leader of Malaysia also go to China and actually buy ships from China, moving that way, now pulling back from TPP. At the same time that, if we look closer to home, we're pulling back from TPP and now we're going to renegotiate NAFTA. As Canada has applied to join the Chinese-led Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, and as Canada is also beginning exploratory talks on a free trade agreement with China. So leadership is one in the world now. You cannot separate out your relationship with China, your trade relationship, from your trading relationship with Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, and Canada and Mexico. China, as the world's biggest trading nation, as the world's biggest market in many cases, what is emerging as the world's biggest lender and investor, China is always at the table. So as we reopen NAFTA and as we attempt to win vis-a-vis Mexico, primarily, Canada secondarily, what they can do with China is lingering in the background and plays a role. And so I'm concerned that we haven't yet done the overall comprehensive policy review that will show the new administration the degree to which all of these different areas are interlinked and have to be considered in toto.
Another area we've discussed quite a bit over the course of months and years is the South China Sea. What are the potentials for a heightened sense of confrontation along those issues?
The South China Sea, since the midsummer ruling of the Permanent Court of Arbitration, which really rejected almost all of China's claims, the South China Sea had been relatively quiet under sort of the new normal. China has militarized the islands it built out. It hasn't been building any new islands. But now we have a new situation. The Secretary of State designate, Rex Tillerson, in his testimony before Congress, said that the United States should block China's access to these islands that it has built out. That sounds like something akin to an act of war. What are we envisioning here? How does one, after all, block an airplane if it's going to land on one of these islands?
You have to shoot it down.
Right. Or a blockade.
Or a no-fly zone or something
and
like that.
we thought that maybe he had misspoke. He had to absorb a lot of information in a very short time. And in dealing with China, the verbs, the adjectives matter. There's a lot of angels dancing on the heads of pins kinds of stuff. But since then, it has not only not been walked back, it's been reiterated in various ways. 2 days ago, the new White House press spokesman also made a similar claim that we would pursue our interests, and if China's islands were in international waters, which they are under the ruling of the Permanent Court of Arbitration, that we would get more involved. So this is extremely worrisome, not only to China, but also to China's neighbors, most of whom are partners or allies of ours.
Final question for now, because we're going to have a lot to talk about, obviously, is the whole question of one China, Taiwan. What are your latest thoughts on it?
Well, my latest thoughts really haven't changed since the first day that Donald Trump, then President-elect, now President Trump, said that he didn't know why he had to be bound by the one China policy and suggested that this could be negotiated. On this one, I think this is simply incorrect. The one China policy is the foundation of the relationship upon which you negotiate all other issues. Trade, economic, intellectual property, whatever they may be. To say that we do not recognize, we're no longer going to have a one China policy, is tantamount to breaking relations with the PRC, which is also our number one trading partner. It's not just the number one trading partner in the Asia Pacific, they are our top trading partner as well. So that one, I think, would result in the dissolution of the relationship as we've known it now since 1979.
Well, Robert, we have a full slate of things to talk about and think about over the course of the coming months. It's going to be an interesting ride.
Look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.